girl. Come on up here. Come on. Good girl. Hi, I'm Jeannine with Sugar Pine Doodles. Today we're going to do a grooming video with Chloe. Chloe is a miniature Australian Labradoodle. She weighs about 25 pounds. We're not going to fully groom her. We're just going to go through the steps. So let's have her stand up. So as you can see, her coat looks good. Some people prefer it shorter. Where we would start with using clippers is where the collar is, working all the way down the back in rows. And at the end, we'll use scissors to trim up any uneven spots. Then we use the clippers down the legs in rows. There will be uneven spots, but you can correct those later. Then we want to do the hindquarters. We don't want to touch the tail. And then on the front, and then I like to lift Chloe up and go down her belly. And then in this area, we want to go a little bit shorter. And you can even use scissors in this area. So we're going to work on Chloe's face. First, we're going to start with scissors. Typically with Labradoodles, the hair grows over their eyes. So what I like to do is take the scissors at an angle, show it to your dog first, let him get used to it, and then do a diagonal cut until you remove the hair at an angle. And on this side, there we go. So those are her eyes are cleaned up. Her eyes were not that bad, but even if it's overgrown, you can just trim down. If you cut too much, it's going to grow out quickly. So you don't need to worry about over trimming. In a week, it'll look great. Now on her face, I like a Doodles cut to go down at an angle. And so if the hair is long here, I typically take 2 fingers and I like to be close to the skin. So it's great to have a comb like this when you're working on the face. I like to have shorter scissors, and you comb down the sides of the face so the hair is at its longest point. And I like to start at the top where her mouth is and work down at an angle and trim it. And then when you comb it out, you can see there is some stragglers, and those I trim off, and I just eye it. And if you overcut, it's going to grow out, so you don't need to worry about that. Next, I like to go under her ears. So under her ears, there's a lot of hair. We like to remove that hair so that air can get into her ear canal and keep it dry. If there's a lot of hair here, it can build up and it can lead to ear infections. So I like to take the shears, holding her ear up, take the shears and just trim down at an angle under the ear. So I'm trimming the ears. I like to take the leather of the ear and protect it with my fingers, and then trim with the shears, and then go to the back of the ear and groom up. I like the ear to be the shape of the leather instead of a square, but whatever your taste is, you would just use your shears and trim. The most important thing is you just want to make sure the ears are even. So then going to the other ear, I'm protecting the leather with my finger because I don't want to cut Chloe. And then I do a cut across. And then I sculpt it with the shape of the leather. So I like a rounded ear. And then I like to pull the ear forward and trim this hair behind. And I usually just do quick cuts like that. And then when I open up the ear, this hair here, I like to trim this off very carefully. And I like to do a downward cut. I don't want to cut towards her face. I like to go down with quick cuts and keeping that ear open for air to get in there. Now we're going to clean Chloe's inner ear. What I like to use is powder first with gloves. Take the powder, do a couple of dabs in the ear. This helps grip the hair, and it's quick pulls and pluck together. So as you'll see, I have little hairs here. I like to just pull them rapidly And you'll see you get a little bit each time. She's not upset about this because it really doesn't hurt. Now her ear is a little bit more cleaned out. At this point, I use our ear cleaner. Do a couple drops. And then I massage her ear and let it get in there. And then I use a cotton ball to clean the ear. You really don't want to put a Q-tip deep inside the ear, but on the outer portion, this is a great time to take a Q-tip, help dry, and get in the little grooves inside the ear. And if the Q-tip comes back and it's dirty, I would repeat that process. Chloe's ear is now clean with minimal hair. So when I'm doing under the ears, I like to pull the ears up and look at her face and examine both sides. And I can see that this, on her right side, it's a little bit longer. So I just eye it and trim. Now, the hair on the top of her head, I like to take it in one big group, get an idea of how long it is. I like to pull all of the hair up with the same motion as before and cut across, and taking the last cut and combining it with more hair so that it stays about the same length. And many times I'll trim it, see if I like the length, and maybe trim a little bit more. So I don't cut real aggressively in the top of the head. I like to trim the back and then comb the hair forward around her eyes to see where it goes over her eye. Then I take the scissors and I come at an angle and trim to the desired length. Everybody has their own personal preference. So as you can see on the face, just scissoring around and sculpting, I think, is the best way to do it. On the back of her head, I do like the length. I will sometimes do some scissor cuts down to thin it out. And a great tool is the thinning shears, where you can go under the ear. So as you'll see, there's a thicker spot here. This is where you can thin it out. Sometimes your doodle will have hair up here. The best way to do it is to comb it up, see the length of it, and then do your first trim a little bit longer to see if you like it. And I like to use 2 fingers. After trimming your Labradoodle's face, you might see little stragglers on the side here, like this one here. I like to trim those off just by using my scissors in a downward motion and making quick little cuts and sculpting the face a bit. And as you do this over time, you'll get better. So we're moving on to Chloe's legs. First thing I like to do is go to their paws, take scissors and carefully trim the hair that's coming through the paws. The best way to do it is to make sure the shears are just above the pads, and she's not very fond of this, so I try to do it quickly and just do these cuts. Before I make the cut, I double check to make sure the scissors are nowhere near cutting a pad. And then below the pad, you'll have hair that grows over. I would trim all that back and then go on the outside of the pads. And then once you trim the outside of the pads, you'll see more hair between the middle of the pads. I like to go in and make very careful cuts so that I can see her pads. Then with her leg down, I take the scissors around her foot and just trim and do the shape that I like. And I prefer to have hair that is just going over the foot. Some groomers will trim all the hair back from the pad and expose the nails. That's a great thing. It keeps their paws, it's easy to clean them, but it's not a look that I really care for. So then I would just continue doing that with each foot. And this is also something to do on a regular basis when you don't want to do a full groom, but you want to keep their feet clean. So next thing is going to be her least favorite thing to do, but it's pretty important, and that is her tail and her bum. So I like to lift up the tail after I've brushed it thoroughly and get my fingers near the skin, pulling out the hair and trimming. I've done this for many years. I do recommend somebody holding the tail while you put your fingers and make cuts with your fingers against your skin, pulling the hair out. I have done this for years, so I can feel it and have a really good idea and just trim quickly. But that's something I recommend doing over time once you have more experience grooming. And what I like about scissor cutting is you have more control. And the clippers, they don't really care for them if they're behind vibrating. Next thing I like to do when I'm back here is you'll see this hair here. And this can get soiled easily. So what I do is I start at the top at an angle coming down, and I pull it with my fingers and trim it. And this side isn't as long. So as you'll see now, this is the way I prefer it. Some groomers shave here, and you could groom it shorter if you'd like, and you could try using the clippers. The younger you start doing that with your doodle, the better. And then we'll move on to the belly. So on Chloe's belly, I'm gonna try with the clippers. She seems to not mind them right now. So I like to start from the bottom and work up. You could also scissor cut this. And then I would also go in the opposite direction on the inner thigh. And when you're doing this, it's good to have somebody helping you. Okay, so you'll see we got a pretty good trim here. I could work on it longer, but hopefully you have the basic idea. So once you're done grooming, you're gonna be covered in hair, you're gonna need a glass of wine, and you're gonna need a shower. So when I'm done grooming Chloe, typically we get in the shower together. I have a big walk-in shower, even a smaller shower. It's great to bring them in if you have a handheld, or put them in your bathtub and bathe them. That's when you get all the extra hair off. So I hope you enjoyed this video and have a great time grooming your doodle. Cheers. Bye, Chloe.